My name is Joe Wilson. I am a co-producer and co-director of a film called Kumu Hina, A Place in the Middle.
And I'm Dean Hamer, also a co-producer and director of Kumu Hina, A Place in the Middle, which is a short film about gender and culture and their intersection in the beautiful islands of Hawaii. It's not, not scary in the sense of them shooting people, but it's scary in that everything is being watched and everything is being...
And nothing can really be done publicly.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I watched the Ai Weiwei
group.
documentary years ago, and that it was like 3 years ago here too, and it was it's shocking. He's directing a film right now from China here in Berlin. He's giving instructions online, and shoot it for him. That's how they do it. It's crazy.
Yeah. But can you imagine, like, if Wieland got approached by the police in Germany and told, if you do this, you're going to jail? Don't show any
This happened 70 years ago here. And
exactly.
We're done. I mean, I hope it looks bad right now. There's a lot of like right-wing, weird stuff going on.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
In Germany and in France. I mean, Europe is fucked. Also.
I know. Yeah, I'm sure you might
is.
encounter some of these bizarre things here.
It's,
Actually, the moderator of our film screening yesterday.
Who was it?
I don't remember her name, unfortunately.
Not probably because it's generation.
It was a generation.
You probably would not.
But she came up to us after the film. She's a woman of color. In the U.S., what we would say, you're a woman of color.
Yeah.
And she said she really identified with the young girl's experience in the film because of what it feels like to be a person of color in Germany now. Because of every Monday night, apparently, there's people marching. And
it's really intense at the moment. I mean, I grew up here, so I'm like sensitive to it, but I'd rather like live in the States right now. I really want to go back in New York, you know. Not like
sort of this.
We watched. Did you see that Danish film? This guy went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and filmed in the only LGBT center.
That's on our list to see.
Yeah.
The 3 stories. Is it good?
It's like a typical like LGBT documentary in a way, but just the stories are so, and I felt so, it's like 2015 and these kids are struggling so hard against that like ultra conservative, crazy insane.
That's what our first film was
about because when we got married 10 years ago.
Where did you get married?
In Canada, because it wasn't legal any place in the States then. And I put the announcement in the New York Times, which is my home paper, and everyone was like, oh, that's so nice. And he put it in his hometown, which is Oil City, Pennsylvania, which is small and ultra-conservative.
Oil City already is.
And the home of the American Family Association.
Yeah, ultra huge.
So it turned into a big controversy, out of which...
Is your family still there? Or?
Parts of my family were still there, but the interesting thing about this was the mere announcement in the paper created a huge firestorm of controversy in the paper.
Yeah.
And as a result, we were living in Washington, D.C. We got a letter in the mail one day, 300 miles away, from a woman who said, I saw your announcement in the paper. I don't know any gay people in this town, but my son is gay and has been tortured for the last year at his high school. Can you help? So we were like, holy shit. We weren't really documentary filmmakers at the time, but we went
you were
to
in
meet
DC.
them.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing other kinds of human rights work. So we went and met them with a camera, and they were just desperate to tell their story. So that started a whole journey of what became a film.
About this one protagonist?
Well, they were one of the main stories in the film, but it was really how do you create change in small-town conservative America.
And then...
And it's so, it's an important topic still.
Then we wanted to use that in rural areas, so we decided to go to every county in Pennsylvania, all 64. There are places in Pennsylvania, like 10,000 people in a county that have never, ever had an openly LGBT event of any sort, or any openly gay person in
any
the county.
contact or like exchange or...
So we just set up something in a library, and there's big swatches of America that are like that.
I know this country still fascinates me so much. You have like these amazingly progressive histories of those cities and this, but then you just 2 hours outside and you're like middle age.
People think writ large there's progress being made, but the day-to-day in most places is still a big struggle.
But it fascinates me, really. It's a fascinating country.
Which is why we were so happy to end up in Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's kind of a different cultural narrative there, which we think
your film. I mean, I'm gonna watch it now because I'm really curious. But it sounds like we're diving into that cultural richness. It's really rich. Huh?
It's very rich and largely not unknown to people, but it has a great history and just a different approach toward.
First, I just take it we're ready.
Talk about it.
That's okay.
Oh, okay.
Let's start officially now, because sometimes it takes a little bit. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Right, perfect. Welcome to the Berlinale and to the Teddy Awards, of course, too. You brought a short film to the Generation section. Maybe you can talk about, you both are based in Hawaii.
Yes.
And I would guess that because you live there now, you came across that story you were telling us in that film. Yeah. Maybe you can begin with talking a little bit about how you came across that story.
Yeah. We met this amazing teacher and cultural icon named Hinale Moana Wang Kalu. She's usually called Kumu Hina, which just means teacher Hina. And we were filming her at her school, and Hina was trying to teach a bunch of young boys a very masculine hula, very sort of manly type of thing. And they just weren't getting it. And so Hina began to bring out her own masculine side, which she's able to do because Hina was born as a boy herself, even though she's now a woman, something in Hawaii called mahu. But they still weren't getting it. And one day this little 11-year-old girl walks by and says, "Let me take a try at that." And everyone's like, "No, this is only for boys. Just let me try." And sure enough, it turns out that she has a lot of man spirit, or mana, inside of her. And her teacher, Kumu Hina, is able to bring that out. And she begins to interact with the boys and slowly but surely become the leader. So this is just an amazing story because a lot of places in the US, she might have been looked down at or castigated or set aside, but in Hawaii, she's actually very much looked up to. So that's the story we're telling in the film.
And when did you decide to make that short documentary out of it?
You know, it's interesting, as Dean described, we do have a longer feature film called Kumu Hina. And this story that we have here at the Berlinale is called Kumu Hina, A Place in the Middle. So it's kind of like a smaller story within the larger film, and we thought it was important to make it into a short because in the world in which we live today, whether we're here in Germany or somewhere in the US or elsewhere, you know, the lives of particularly young people who aren't somewhere within what we would call the normal range of, are you a boy, are you a girl, or what are you? Everybody thinks you have to have a label. And this Hawaiian story really shows that you can be who you are within this spectrum of gender, cultural, or other kinds of fluidity and have a real home. So we thought a short version of this film, particularly told from a young person's point of view, would be a really important film to be available for kids and for educators and other people just trying to create, you know, environments where everybody's welcome. So we're here in the Generation K Plus section as well as, you know, the Teddy section and the queer section. It's just a wonderful convergence of themes.
But I understand that one of the reasons why your protagonist can kind of like live that really beautiful identity is because there's a cultural legacy too.
True enough.
To it.
Yeah.
So in Hawaii, there's a tradition called mahu. And mahu are people who have both male spirit and female spirit. And these people are looked at as special and even sacred because they have both strengths within them. So typically mahu are the people who carry on the culture. They remember the long genealogical chants that are required to recall Hawaiian history. They often are caretakers of people. And in fact, the first mahu were supposed to be from Tahiti, and they came over the long distance in a canoe, and they were said to be very tall, statuesque men-type people, but with female mannerisms and gentleness. And they brought the healing arts to Hawaii and are now commemorated there. So there's this cultural legacy of not just of like accepting mahu even though they're transgender, but of venerating mahu because they mix both genders. And it's within that cultural background that this type of fluidity is so possible.
And it's a real clash of cultures too, because Hawaii, like so many other places where there were indigenous cultures, are dominated now by kind of the Western way of doing things. So while in the West we talk about people who might be transgender, you know, transitioning from one gender to another, in Hawaii and many parts of the Pacific, there is a way to be who you are between and within.
Is it close to this Two-Spirit?
It's a similar concept to Two-Spirit.
I'd say it's quite close to Two-Spirit in that it's not you change from one to the other. It's like you're born as a two-spirit person.
Right.
And highly regarded because
so-
of that. You inhabit, a spiritual place. Yeah.
Is there some sort of like initiation, or how do you
No, because that's
grow
what's
into
funny
that?
about it. I think, we're always, if you look at it through Western eyes, we see it as like this, how do you recognize this? But if you see it like in just this cultural context of a school that's Hawaiian values-based, it's just part of what it means, to be in the spectrum there. And Hina, the teacher, because her kids do live in kind of a Western world outside of the school, she does try to create lift those kids up, because she knows that if they're treated really special in that environment, they'll be able to withstand the harshness of the kind of modern Western world outside of them. So she does elevate that status and say, you're special because of who you are.
It's not been screened in Berlin yet, or has it? Did you already?
We just had our world premiere yesterday, and it was part of the Generation K Plus section. So there were kids as young as 4 or 5, a lot of them, and their parents, and the kids really appreciate it. The kids,
How did they react?
Oh, they love it. This little girl is the magic hula girl. She's incredible. It's a little bit like the film The Whale Rider, where there's this strong girl that takes over. And we also just played it in Tahiti. And in Tahiti, they have a film festival where the first day is all school kids only. And they played the documentary. And we were like, well, how's that going to work? The kids there
There
were
were
the
like
most
700 students.
700 students. They're the most reactive audience we've ever seen. They're cheering in the middle. Every time this little girl would stand up and belt it out, they're like, yeah, get up, Tita. So, people identify with her.
So why did you make that film? Why is it relevant? Why do you want to show it to the world?
Partly it's because there are a lot of kids like Ho'onani who are somewhere in between, and to empower them, but more important, to let other teachers know, teachers who aren't transgender, teachers who live in other cultures, and their parents and the community members know that this is fine to be in between genders. It's not just fine, it's not just okay, it actually can come with its own benefits, and that kids like that really should be encouraged. And we think it can make a much more open and inclusive and welcoming society for everybody who's a little bit different. So that's our real motivation for the film.
We're activists at heart. Filmmakers, yes, but film as a tool.
As a tool, okay.
Yeah.
What do you stand for? What's your activism?
Well, I think, we try to find stories that help uncover injustice, an injustice that is often not acknowledged or kind of treated in a superficial way. So even screening here at the Berlinale, while this is a film that many people say, oh, it's about gender and how young people are kind of exploring that, people are coming up to us and saying, at this moment in Germany, where race and ethnicity are being challenged yet again, that a story like this gives even adults hope about what it means to kind of be accepted in what may seem like a harsh environment. So I think we have to look at what does it mean to identify as your own culture and live that proudly wherever you happen to be, and have the right to do that and to be respected and included in all ways in the community that you want to call home. That's what the film's for.
So, although it is a specific local story, it has like this universal
I think so.
relevance to it.
We, like all activists and all right-thinking people, believe everyone should have an equal chance, everyone should be equal.
Yeah.
But we think that it's not just a matter of protecting the people that are on the outside and telling their stories. It's also good for the majority people, for the controlling people, to know these stories. Because, after all, they're the problem. It's not the gay people that are the problem, it's the straight people. It's not the
There's also
in-between
gay people in control that are problem.
Oh, that's true. You're absolutely right about that.
It's not that the gays are the...
Well, no, when we talk
Innocent
about these
ones.
kinds of things, like when you do a film screening and people say, well, what can we do? And often in the so-called queer LGBT world, the idea is, oh, you have to come out and you have to stand up and tell your stories.
Yeah.
And in a way, I do believe that's true, but in a way, it's the people who are experiencing kind of the ones being marginalized also shouldn't be the ones who have to shoulder the burden of correcting the social problems. It's like the so-called mainstream world has to stand up and take responsibility at some point.
Yeah.
But we think a film like this has a possibility to engage people like in a more hopeful and entertaining way to achieve that, as opposed to telling sad stories. We wanted to tell a positive story that kind of maybe gets that same point across. Yeah.
I think you achieved it.
Good.
I hope so. Yeah,
Thanks,
I'll watch it. I'll watch the entire film.
Good.
Thank you so much for coming and
Thank
sharing
you.
your
I
work with
appreciate
us.
it.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
But can you imagine, like, if Wieland got approached by the police in Germany and told, if you do this, you're going to jail? Don't show any
This
gay-
happened
don't show any
70
gay
years
films.
ago here. And
Yeah,
this is like,
exactly.
you know, like we're done. I mean, I hope it looks bad right now. There's a lot of like right-wing, weird stuff going on in
Yeah.
Germany
Yeah,
too.
very
I've heard.
interesting.
In
Yeah.
Germany and
Yeah.
in France. I mean, Europe is fucked. Also, like,
Yeah. My name is Joe Wilson. I am a co-producer and co-director of a film called Kumu Hina, A Place in the Middle.
And I'm Dean Hamer, also a co-producer and director of Kumu Hina, A Place in the Middle, which is a short film about gender and culture and their intersection in the beautiful islands of Hawaii. It's
I
not.
don't know.
It's like
I
not
find it so
scary
scary.
in the sense of.
Because of what it feels like to be a person of color in Germany now. Because
It's
of every
it's
Monday night,
crazy.
apparently, there's people marching and
It's really intense at the moment. I mean, I grew up here, so I'm like sensitive to it. But I'd rather like live in the States right now. I really want to go back. In New York, you know.
Yeah.
Not like
Sort of this.
we watched. Did you see that Danish film? This guy went to Tulsa.
yeah, I'm
It
sure
really
you might
is.
encounter some of these
Yeah,
bizarre
it's
things
crazy.
here.
It's
Actually, the moderator of our film screening yesterday,
who was it?
I don't remember her name, unfortunately.
Not probably because it's Generation.
It was a
right? I don't know.
generation.
Generation, you
yeah.
probably would not. Yeah,
But
yeah.
she came up to us after the film. She's a woman of color. In the U.S., what we would say, oh, you're
Yeah,
a woman
I
of
know.
color.
Yeah.
And she said she really identified with the young girl's experience in the film.
Them shooting people, but it's scary that everything is being watched and everything is being.
And nothing
Yeah, the
can really be
surveillance
done
is crazy.
publicly.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I watched
all
the
very
Ai
small
Weiwei
group.
documentary years ago, and that
Right.
like it was like
Yeah.
3 years ago here too, and it was
Yeah.
it's shocking. He's directing a film right now from China here in Berlin. He's
Oh, yeah,
giving
really?
instructions online, and
Yeah.
shoot it. That's how they do it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.